in a corner of
Long ago, in the heart of Ndimba Kingdom,
there's a place called Jubosmiles.
there lived a woman named Adamma, whose beauty was sung about across the villages. She was not only graceful but kind, devoted and wise. She married Obi, a hunter known for his strength and charm, and together they built a home filled with love, laughter and warmth. For years, Adamma took care of Obi. She cooked his meals with the finest spices, tended to his wounds after long hunting trips, and stood by him through all seasons. But as time passed, and after bearing him 3 children, her body changed. She became fuller, her waist no longer as slender as when they first met. Obi, once madly in love with her, began to change. He grew distant, his eyes wandering elsewhere. He mocked her, called her Mama Elephant in front of others, laughing with his friends at how she moved. Then one day, he did the unthinkable. He sent her away. "You are no longer the woman I married, Adamma," he spat, his eyes cold. "I cannot live with someone who looks like you." Adamma, heartbroken, begged him to reconsider, but he had already replaced her. A younger woman, sleek and slim, had captured his attention. Her name was Ifunanya. With nowhere to go, Adamma left with tears in her eyes. Life with Ifunanya was full of passion at first, but soon cracks began to show. She had no patience for him, no warmth like Adamma had given. She wasted his wealth, mocked him when he failed, and when he fell ill, she refused to care for him. Meanwhile, Adamma, though devastated, found strength in her pain. She left the village, swearing that the man who had once humiliated her would regret it. She trained her body, her mind and her spirit. She shared the weight of sorrow, of shame, of neglect. Years later, when she returned, she was unrecognizable. Years passed like whispers carried by the wind. The once fragile and broken Adamma had transformed into a striking woman, strong, confident, and breathtaking in a way that no one had seen before. Her body had changed, but more than that, her spirit had hardened. The pain of Obi's betrayal had burned away the timid girl she once was, leaving behind a woman of steel. She had learned the ways of trade, wealth, and power in a distant land. She had become a woman who commanded respect wherever she went, and now she was ready to return. Obi's life, on the other hand, had crumbled like a termite-infested hut. Ifunanya, the woman he had abandoned Adamma for, had drained him of everything: his wealth, his dignity, his strength. She spent his money recklessly, danced with younger men at village feasts, and laughed in his face when he demanded respect. The once proud hunter, the man who had cast away his wife for her body, now sat in rags outside his home, staring at the life he had ruined. One fateful evening, the village square buzzed with excitement. A grand feast was being held in honor of a powerful merchant who had arrived with a caravan of goods. The entire village gathered to welcome this mysterious figure, eager to see the one whose name had spread across kingdoms. And then she stepped forward. Gasps filled the air. Women whispered behind their hands. Men stood speechless. Adamma. Her presence was like a storm. She moved with the grace of a queen. Her once full figure now sculpted into something fierce and commanding. dressed in the finest silks, adorned with gold and jewels. She was the very image of a woman who had conquered life itself. Obi's throat went dry. His eyes bulged. He knew that face. He knew those eyes. Adama, he croaked, as if calling her name would undo the years of suffering he had caused. But Adama merely smiled, a slow, knowing smile that sent chills down his spine. "Ha, Obi," she said, her voice smooth as palm wine, yet sharp as a warrior's blade. "How life has treated you so differently from how you once treated me." Ifunanya, who had been preening before the crowd moments ago, suddenly stiffened. She saw the way the villagers looked at Adama with admiration, the way men who once ignored her now lowered their heads in shame. Obi, desperate, staggered forward, falling to his knees. "Adama, my love, my wife, please, forgive me. I was a fool." Adama laughed, soft, dangerous, spitting. Beating. "Oh, Obi," she whispered, stepping closer. "You haven't even begun to pay for what you did to me." She leaned in, her voice just for him, "And I have only just begun." The air was thick with tension as the village watched. Obi, the once proud hunter, was now on his knees before the woman he had cast aside like an old rag. Adama stood tall, looking down at him with an expression so unreadable that even the elders held their breath. Ifunanya, the woman for whom Obi had ruined his marriage, shifted uncomfortably. Her usual arrogance faltered under Adama's gaze. She had spent years mocking Adama's downfall, never imagining that the woman she had replaced would return in such glory. Adama let the silence stretch. She wanted him to feel it, to taste the shame, the regret, the fear creeping up his spine. "You asked for forgiveness, Obi," she finally spoke, her voice as smooth as river stones. "Forgiveness is earned, not begged for." Obi swallowed hard. "I would do anything, Adama, anything to make things right." Adama let out a soft laugh, but there was no joy in it. "Make things right? You think you can undo years of humiliation? The nights I cried myself to sleep? The way you paraded this woman before me, mocked my body, and tossed me away like a broken calabash." She turned to the crowd, her voice growing stronger. "Tell me, people of Ndiba, when a man throws away a ripe fruit because he thinks it has bruises, does it deserve to eat from the tree when it flourishes again?" The villagers murmured among themselves. Some nodded in agreement, others cast disgusted glances at Obi. Even the elders, known for their wisdom and patience, remained silent, unwilling to defend him. Obi's hands trembled. He knew that if the village turned against him, he would have no protection. Then Adama stepped forward and did something unexpected. She cupped his chin gently, forcing him to look up into her eyes. "I want you to watch me, Obi," she whispered, her voice laced with something dangerous. "Watch as I take back everything you tried to destroy. Watch as I become something greater than you could ever imagine." She released him and turned to the elders. "I have returned not just as a woman who was wronged, but as a woman who has risen. I have wealth, I have power, and I have something far more dangerous than knowledge." She paused, letting the words sink in. "But I'm not here for revenge." She glanced back at Obi, her lips curving into a smirk. "Not yet." With that, she turned and walked away, her presence commanding, her aura untouchable. Obi collapsed fully onto the ground, his body shaking. He knew in that moment that Adama was no longer his to plead with. She had become something far beyond his reach. And yet, as he watched her disappear into the night, he couldn't shake the feeling that his true suffering had only just begun. The village of Ndiba buzzed with whispers for weeks after Adama's return. Some wondered if she would truly forgive Obi, while others waited eagerly for the storm they sensed was brewing. But Adama remained patient, too patient. Obi, however, grew restless. He had lost everything. Ifunanya, seeing that Obi was no longer the powerful man she had once admired, began treating him with even more disdain. She spent his remaining wealth on lavish jewelry, flirted with younger men, and laughed at his misery. One evening, the village crier announced a grand feast. It was to be hosted by Adama herself. The invitation was extended to every villager, including Obi and Ifunanya. Curious and eager, the people of Ndiba gathered at the village square, where the feast had been set. Large clay pots of steaming soup, roasted meats, and fresh palm wine covered the long tables. But what captured everyone's attention was the grandest seat in the middle, decorated with the finest gold and silk. Then she arrived. Adama walked in like a queen, dressed in flowing garments, finer than anything the village had ever seen. She carried herself with such grace that even the elders stood in respect. "Welcome, my people," she said, her voice smooth yet commanding. "Tonight we feast. We celebrate growth, transformation, and justice." A heavy silence followed her words. Obi shifted uneasily. Ifunanya rolled her eyes unconcerned. Adama clapped her hands. "But first, I have a gift." Two strong men stepped forward, carrying a large covered clay pot. They placed it at the center of the feast. And Adama turned to Obi and Ifunanya, her smile sharp as a blade. "Come, Obi. Come, Ifunanya. Open it." The village watched as Obi, trembling, hesitated before slowly lifting the cover. Gasp filled the air. Inside the pot was nothing but bones, picked clean, white as the moon, arranged neatly in the shape of a broken heart. Obi staggered back in horror. "This," Adama said, her voice like a whispering wind before her storm, "are the bones of the goats you slaughtered for your mistress while I starved. The bones of the love you killed, the bones of my suffering." The villagers stared wide-eyed. Adama stepped closer, her voice dropping lower. "I've taken back my life, my dignity, and my power. But you, Obi, you will live knowing that you are nothing. That the woman you threw away has become greater than you could ever dream." She turned to Ifunanya, who stood frozen. "And you, Ifunanya, the one who laughed at my pain, who enjoyed the fruit of another woman's labor, you will taste what it means to be discarded." As if on cue, one of the young men Ifunanya had been flirting with stepped forward. He sneered, looking her up and down. "Who would want you now?" he mocked. "You are just a fading shadow." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Ifunanya's face burned as she realized the truth. Her beauty was no longer enough. Without Obi's wealth, she was nothing. Adama turned, lifting her goblet high. "To the ones who rise from the ashes." The villagers cheered, their voices shaking the earth. Obi fell to his knees, hollow and broken. Ifunanya, humiliated, turned to leave. But there was nowhere to run. They had both been undone by the woman they had scorned. And as Adama watched them, she knew her revenge was complete. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the story. Please, let's hear your comments in the comment section. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and do where to subscribe.
So come and be a wanderer in this vibrant, lively realm, where every click and view takes you to another hell. The universe of storytelling and entertainment at its core. In Jubosmiles forever, the magic